Hi, this is Jenny Brackett Brooks, and I'm talking about my personal creative exploration project. Um, Years ago, I did a crazy thing, or what I thought was crazy, and took a giant leap of faith with my family and quit my job. My husband could kind of work from anywhere, and we decided to take the kids out of school and travel for 1 year. We had a property that was on an island in South Carolina that we wanted to fix up and do things with. And we also had spent very little time there. Thought we could spend time there with our children, exploring nature on this island. So, um, after a lot of soul searching and frankly, a lot of midlife crisis angst, we did finally do what we had been talking about for years. So it was one of the most creative things I've ever done, and I blogged about it all year. So this project made me go back and revisit my blog. I love to write, and that is my creative dream to be a writer. I have published two books that were basically curriculum and teaching activity books for the gifted, but I never published anything creative or what I consider to be like narrative creative. So, first thing I did was start exploring and going back through and going through the brainstorming process with my blog. And as I wrote in my journal entries, I went through and kind of cataloged all the different blog entries. Like this was one that was kind of a little, tongue in cheek or satirical with the Brooks Academy, the most exclusive private school blog, telling about um, how we were teaching the kids and got, our admissions policy, ha ha ha. Um, of course, you must be a biological child. That was the joke there. And then our plan of study, I had housing. These were our dormitory, the kids' bedrooms, the guest housing, because I was again inviting friends to come see us and showing them where the guest student housing would be. Talking about dining. My husband is a chef, and so kind of attempting to lure people to see us from that. And of course, the tuition slave labor for the full-time students, haha, meaning our children. Um, and then going back through again, I was just looking at all the adventures that we had. So I'm just scrolling through. There's my kids showing you the different thing. Too tired to blog. This is when we first moved and finally made it. It was a terrifying thing, and that was another part of it. So I was trying to think about what kind of book, how could I write a book, a memoir of this year of adventure for our family and homeschooling and traveling. And I called it road schooling as we were going and visiting all the different places. How could I put this all in one book? Because it was so much. And a big part of it was my midlife crisis, purging your home because we did rent out our house. My closet has never been that clean since. Because again, we were just away for 1 year. But I also talk about, you know, taking a leap of faith and doing something you'd always dreamed of and figuring out creatively how to pay for it. So we rented out our house, which is another creative thing, to a couple from Finland. And again, I sold my car to have money because we only needed one car for that year. And just again, going back through and looking at how our friends helped us. There's my husband. Um, and then we, of course, did field trips around town first before we actually left for our adventure. And then like this, miracles happen if you believe. So I took this and I started cataloging and trying to arrange and trying to brainstorm um, and think flexibly how I could put this together. And my background is actually in film and television. That's where my first degree, and I worked for a few years in that before I started teaching and having children of my own. Um, and so I thought, the only thing that I've ever written fully that was creative were screenplays. So I thought, with all this, and again, with my brainstorming about my midlife crisis, I realized that that year was about being just as interested in your own life as you were a television show. Excuse me. So I thought, what if you binge watched your own life? And that's where I started thinking I could make this um, into and arrange my plot for my memoir around different shows, if you will, that would be on my own family channel or family network. And then I divided the shows into different topics. So the ones that were Life Break Class was all about me and my midlife crisis. I also decided to have a soundtrack with, so I picked songs from that year because I mentioned it in my blog. So I've got Life Break Class. This is pre-production before we went on our journey. And our soundtrack is Die, Die, Die by the Avett Brothers. um, so, you know, this at the age of 43, I found myself stuck in a suburbanite purgatory, frantic to escape. I felt like the woman in the Far Side cartoon, the one where a couple are in a car studying a map, lost in the country of nowhere, when they come upon a road sign that reads, entering the middle. And the woman says, well, this is just going from bad to worse. That's exactly how I felt, that I'm entering the middle of life and what am I doing? So my husband and I were that couple with three kids in the back seat, except we weren't just driving through or living in nowhere with every waking minute filled with midlife details and responsibilities. Um, and I go on into the details of why we did this. So that's the theme around this show. So this show is Life Break Class, episode 1, and how my midlife crisis got us into doing this for a year. Then another creative thing I had was I did to do a show called the Desperate and Downtrodden Book Club because I thought about how many books have really inspired me. I'm a literature teacher, and obviously, books, I get a lot from them, and they inspire, they kind of lay out the framework. And so I thought, how fun, what if I creatively make this show like a talk show, like, a la Oprah or um, Ellen or Kelly Clarkson, any of those people who have people they admire on their show and interview them. But again, this is fiction, but I just tried to take that and show how they inspired me. So this is the Desperate and Downtrodden Book Club, episode 1, Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, which she, inspired me no end. Again, this was 10 years ago. Soundtrack, Desperado. I was desperate, obviously. And then I've even got, as the script goes, fade and theme music, roll opening titles, cue host. And again, I go through this where I'm interviewing her. I had so much fun letting my creativity run wild, and I actually found myself getting into the flow, as Stark mentions, where it just starts coming out, and you literally can't stop. This one I had fun because I'd actually researched some of Elizabeth Gilbert, and found out, of course, that she was a very famous writer before this even happened and was making a living as a writer and had actually been paid an advance on a new novel or new book, which was Eat, Pray, Love. So she was traveling with that. And this is me trying to figure out how can I get money to travel? Which is why I had my like little sarcastic note down here at the end. The author wishes to admit that no such interview with Elizabeth Gilbert ever took place. These were the jealous thoughts running through her mind as she read Miss Gilbert's insightful spiritual odyssey. Basically, the author's feelings cantered between wanting to either be Miss Gilbert or run her over with a truck. And that is where I flow into, again, more the plan. Soundtrack Handle Me with Care by the Traveling Wilburys. My husband is also a musician. So in here, we've got music and we've got a lot of food, as I said before. He is a chef. So this is where I've gone. I've just been flowing through, and I can't tell you how excited I am and really want to pursue this. All summer long, I have been just excited to get up and to write and have made sure that I've blocked off a little bit of time for myself. I'm worried now that school's coming back that I may not have as much time to write, but I do have my blog to refer back to when I get stuck. So hopefully that will help me. And once school gets going, I'm really hoping that I'll have time again in between grading papers, of course, um, to write more about our year. Thank you so much for this opportunity and for helping me focus on a creative endeavor again. I really have missed that part of myself.